welcome to our Sino-Finnish Education Dialogue. Today we have Leena Kaikkonen from JAMK, University of Applied Science. Leena, would you please say hello to our Chinese educators?
Hello, everyone. Good to see you from here.
Yeah, and Leena, I know you have worked many years in teacher education. So today our topic is focused on this area. May I ask how many years you have been worked in this area?
Okay, you never ask a lady how old she is, but I cannot avoid saying that I have actually over 40 years of experience in education. My first 10 years, as my first background, I'm a kindergarten teacher, and also I have specialized so that I'm special needs teacher for children with learning difficulties. And the first 10 years, I did my work in kindergarten, working with different diverse children. And now I have worked also as a vocational teacher in a couple of years. And then I have been here in JAMK University of Applied Sciences in School of Professional Teacher Education, 30 years already.
Wow. So from the river of time, do you think or do you feel there are any changes of the teacher education objectives are changed?
This is something that I have been thinking, and I would say that yes, of course there are changes, because for example, concerning myself, that since in the end of the 1970s until now, that the world has changed a lot. For example, to take one example is technology. Yeah. But if I think about the basis of teachers' work and so forth, also about teacher education, I would say that main element remains all the time the same. The teachers are there for children, for youngsters, for adults, to help them to learn. And in that sense, I would say that there's bases have not changed, even though the contexts and environments, situations in our society have changed, of course. Last decades that we have had this idea that we should and we need to provide good education for every child, not depending on their background, the social economical situation of their families or their cultural backgrounds or their needs, special needs or whatever, that we want to provide good education for everyone. So equality, equity, they are the basic values we have had in our education system.
And let's talk about teacher education. I know you worked in JAMK, professional teacher education program. So this is for what kind of teachers? Because I know in universities, we already have a teacher education department. There, we train the future teachers. But this program, I know in Finland, there are 5 AMKs offered this kind of teacher education. So this is to whom?
Yeah, I could show you one slide.
Yes.
You might, if you can see it now. No need. I'm not going into very much in details about the Finnish education system, saying very briefly that we have 9 years basic education, then 3 years of general upper secondary education, which means gymnasiums or vocational education. And then we have the universities, 2 types of them, the old science universities, as well the universities of applied sciences, where I'm located and where our teacher education is located. And how to become a teacher in our system, we have again a dual system for training teachers. And those universities, let's say scientific or science universities, they are training teachers for our pre-primary education as well for basic education, which is a master degree program. And in many of the universities, like Helsinki University, where Juvendanas are. And they also train the subject teachers for general upper secondary education. On behalf of our teacher education here at JAMK University, we are training teachers. The basic main thing that we are doing, we are teaching, training teachers for vocational education, meaning this upper secondary level here, but also we train teachers who are working in universities of applied sciences. This is the rough difference between science universities and universities of applied sciences. But on the other hand, also science universities, they give the pedagogical training for, of course, their own teachers, but also they can come to us and move to work as subject teachers in the universities. And some of the teachers that we train, they also can work as subject teachers in the basic education in the upper grades of it. But the main elements, what we do is we train teachers for vocational education. And I have learned that this is quite uncommon globally even, that in Finland we consider that when you move to work in vocational education, that it is a different type of a task, that it's not enough that you are an expert yourself so that you can train somebody to be an expert in some professional field, but you need to have also this pedagogical training. And I would say that it is coming more and more important all the time.
Okay, so can I understand that in Finland, if you want to be a teacher, whatever levels, first is master degree, second you should have your teaching subject or teaching engineer, like nursing or any subject, and then it's the pedagogy study. For this program, your program is offer this pedagogy studies, because for the persons, they already have their subject, their levels. So now when they want to work in University of Applied Science or other vocational education, they need this third thing, pedagogy studies.
Exactly. That if you want to be the teacher in basic education, you can apply for that when you do your matriculation test in high school.
Yes, and can you tell us more about this teacher education program? What do you have any framework for the teacher competence? Like what kind of teacher you are training for the future for Finland?
Okay, another slide. I have it. I knew that you would ask this one.
Yes.
This is in a nutshell. The competencies, that how we define them. We don't have a long list of things that a teacher should do, that, okay, you should be able to do your PowerPoints and you should be able to do your study plans for your students. That's, of course, what we consider. But what we have tried to find out is that what are the big competence areas? We call them competence areas more likely than competencies only. And we have, at the moment, this has changed along the years, and at the moment it is like this one, that we define the competence areas in 3. Facilitating learning is the first one, creating future, and developing teachers' own identity. And all these 3 competence areas are divided to a bit smaller entities, starting from the competence area facilitating learning. It means that the teacher, of course, needs to have these facilitating learning skills, which means that they have the kind of a theoretical and philosophical background knowledge about learning as such, but also that they have an ability to plan and implement and assess meaningful learning processes for their diverse students. Learning environment skills means that teachers have to have their skills to develop and renew different type of learning environments that are which are best for the learning purposes. Concerning vocational education, this means, for example, that a lot of the learning happens in the real working life environments, and the teachers have to have a skill to collaborate with working life in order to organize these kind of environments to be successful for the students, but also, of course, it is digital learning environments and whatever the environments within their learning processes can be. And of course, the third one, interaction skills, that they have to be able to have good interaction with their students, but also with all the other people whom they need in order to have the successful learning processes for students. Creating future is considered sometimes to be that what is this? But we consider that our teachers should focus towards future, not being kind of only implementing, but all the time developing the area where they are working, what they are teaching. Would it be their own professional field or the subject area within the system, so that they have this kind of an investigative but also critical approach to their work, and that they continuously develop their own developmental skills as well, working with others, working in the community, working within the school, working with other partners, for example, in working life surroundings and that kind of things. And the last one, that we should develop ourselves as teachers all the time. What kind of a teacher I am, what is my identity as a teacher. Reflection skills, the most important, that I continuously reflect what I do, so that I recognize my own actions, what kind of an impact they have, and I critically assess how do I do my work, how could I do it even better, is it valid for my students, and of course from the society point of view. And the last one we have nowadays is this agency skills, which is trying to say or is approaching the idea that we are proactive in our work, so that we are going for the future, towards the future, not waiting somebody else to tell us what we should do. Of course, there are the national guidelines and that kind of things, but nevertheless.
I mean, because I have got teacher education in China, the way we have the courses is lectures. It's quite teacher directed. So he just stand in front of us, deliver many knowledge to us. But here in Finland, it's quite a different approach. Like in universities, you are in your program, I think there are a lot of learning diaries, reflection, have presentation with classmates and workshops. So this is quite a student-centered approach to learn. I feel this difference between Finland and China. And can you introduce in your programs? So what do you think is the methodology between these competences?
Okay. I agree with you that we try to have this learner-centered approach, and it's not just a choice that we have made. It is something that we have done, or we have decided to do based on how we see learning. And if you ask about that how things have changed during the years that I have been involved in education system as a student myself or as a teacher and a teacher educator, I would say that definitely the difference came sometimes in the 1980s or so, that we started to understand learning differently. That we started to think that the students and learners need to construct the knowledge themselves instead of us loading them with our knowledge. So in my early years, I would say that when I was in school, we did some group work, but mostly I would say that it was teachers lecturing and us making our notes and answering to the teacher's question. But already I would say that in 1970s, we started to work on working this group work, but it wasn't very efficient. But if I think about the work here in the teacher education here in JAMK, I would say that the change was quite dramatic in around the beginning of 1990s, that we changed the way totally how we do things, and we moved to these learner-centered tasks where teachers students need to do things themselves. And I remember I have taken my teacher education in my third teacher education in this university in 1989. And I remember in our group that we were a little bit angry that what on earth is this, that why don't they teach us what they make us to do? And they gave us some tasks to do individually or in groups, and then they went somewhere and we were thinking they are just drinking their coffee. But I think that quite soon, however, we learned that. And I would say that when I started my work here in 1990s, it was quite a lot of that. I had to use a lot of time to explain for the teacher students that why do we work in the way that we work, and that it is based on the changed idea of learning. And nowadays, I would say that it is not that kind of a critical issue, that people have learned to understand that also. But on the other hand, we have, like you said, we have a lot of these reflective tasks. We do have learning diaries and different type of tools for help people to self-reflect their own actions. But on the other, also, it doesn't mean that we wouldn't do readings, or we can have lectures. Lecture is a good working tool in some points, if it's not the only one, but it is a good tool as well. Readings are good, but I would say that if I think, for example, our teacher education, where many of our teacher students already have worked as teachers before they come here, or they have their own experiences from working life. So we consider that we kind of use also that resource, what they know before they come here, and help them through these different type of tasks to think critically, learn from each other, reflect together, and in that sense construct their knowledge together. So we have this quite strongly this socially constructivistic idea behind and the learner-centered approach.
欢迎大家点赞、评论、转发，下期节目见。